Building a brand, how do you go about that? What advantage do you get once an iconic brand has actually been in the public consciousness? I mean, again, CXG, we're trying to push our brand forward, we're trying to create it. It's going to be very interesting to hear Mr. Gold explain how did Ann Summers, how did that brand get built? What was it that managed to push it forward so it is now an iconic brand? I'm now going to ask another question, which is important to me because I run my own business as well, and I'm trying to build a brand that gets associated with ethics and integrity, which is very, very important when you're in the property game, because a lot of people get let down. And I know Mr. Gold has built an iconic brand, obviously Ann Summers, and now I'd just like to ask, did you envisage that? Did you feel you wanted to build something that people would associate with it, or again, did it happen? Do you credit your daughters with that, or how much did you sit down and say, this is a plan, we're going to build a brand, everyone's going to know it, etc., or did it sort of just materialise?
The Ann Summers business was bought in 1972, and it was a business of basically it's about 10 or 12 stores, of which two of them were two of the four stores that I bought, having left my shop in John Hammond Street off of Villiers Street all those years ago. So we had 10 Ann Summers stores. Okay. Very male-orientated stores. And it was my daughter's idea of getting into Party Plan that really changed everything. So there's nothing deliberate about this. We bought the Ann Summers brand because we liked it. We believed it had a future. But it wasn't expanding very fast. It was a very slow process. You know, we'd open a shop maybe once a year, maybe two in a year at best. Very, very slow. And then, of course, the Party Plan. Now, the Party Plan literally boomed to such an extent that I remember calling everybody together and saying, look, we have to slow this business down, otherwise we're going to go bust. Now, I don't think anybody's ever said that. Can you imagine? Slow down, because if we don't, we're going to go bust. In other words, we were so successful, we were likely to go bust. How can that be? Well, I'll give you an example of, well, not an example, it's an actual fact, that what was happening is that the sales and the sales force was growing at such a pace. The rest of the business, remember, there's no computers, or computers are just coming in. I remember having a computer the size of that settee and my phone now today has probably got 100 or 1,000 times more processing power than that original computer, which is the size of a settee. And that's what we had to do. We had to slow the business down, which we did. We slowed it down so that the rest of the business could catch up. So the sales and the sales force was growing so fast that if we weren't careful, we were just going to fail. And literally, we slowed the business down whilst the computers caught up, whilst the administration caught up, whilst the logistics all caught up. I forgot what the question was.
Well, I think the important lesson on that one, the important lesson on that one is, I think the saying they say, turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. And if you don't keep control of your business, then you can get carried away with turnover and not realise that you're not making the profit that is crucial to sustain it.
I think what you were saying there, Robin, was about the brand and how it happened. what happened there was that we were driven by the demand. And what we then realised was that Ann Summers was the jewel in the crown, and that this was the business now to focus on. And then we became very precious about our brand. Now we were into quality control, we hadn't been. Now we're concerned about customer care, customer experience. Our stores started to grow because the party plan was growing. Don't forget, there's no internet yet. So we've got a tiny, tiny mail order business, which you can almost discount. But the stores started to grow. We opened 30 stores in a year because we built the infrastructure to be able to cope with the growth. Party plan was still growing. I remember at the time when I slowed everything down, we had 1,000 girls in the field. And then a few years later, we had 5,000 girls in the field. Now, if you imagine, if we'd have gone from 1,000 to 5,000 in a year, that's when we would have failed. So slowing that down, that was a big, when I think of it, you know. And it's tough to slow down because when you're successful and something's growing, the adrenaline is pumping, you know, the excitement of, you know, another store opened and another store, and we're now up to 3,000 girls in the field. You know, you're meeting these targets and it's just a huge buzz. Sometimes you've got to step back and say, wow, hang on here a second, you know, and that's what we did, and when we slowed things down whilst everything else caught up. But the brand became the Ann Summers brand. Then we realised that it was very, very important to protect that brand, you know, because it was becoming more and more famous. The brand was, you know, the papers were carrying stories about Ann Summers all the time, and so I think that's important that you. In some cases, the brand is you. If you're a one-man business, the brand actually is you. So you've got to protect you. You've got to protect your image to your customer. In our case, of course, it was the name, the product, and so, you know, I would urge people to, you know, to protect their brand.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. And that iconic brand has obviously now provided a lot of pleasure to a lot of different people, both male and female, including myself, I must say.
I'm forever blowing bubbles